Moderation is about ensuring that the assessment criteria are being applied accurately and consistently. So we simply follow the university's guidelines, really. We employ a moderator from outside the unit teaching team, but another member of staff from the programme, who's responsible for ensuring the accurate and consistent application of the assessment criteria to all students' work. It's a process that begins right at the beginning of the academic year, really. The moderator is responsible for verifying the unit's Moodle areas, for verifying the assignment briefs, and so on. So it's not just about the students' submissions and the examination process, it's about ensuring that the unit functions properly from the beginning. We rewrote our assessment criteria 2, maybe 3 years ago now to map them more closely onto the university's standard descriptors and to present them to students in a form that was more consistent with those university standard descriptors. So in some ways it was about presentation rather than the content. But we did rewrite them, and we've been through a process of they've been through a process of evolution and refinement since then. The moderation process that we operate now differs in the most markedly from what we did before, in that we used to operate a system that you might call sample second marking, which is in fact a system that most university departments in my discipline operate, and I know that as an external examiner in various other institutions. It's a system which has its drawbacks, as I think the moderation process does too, but the biggest difference is that with sample second marking, a second marker will look at a sample of work, second mark it, and then a discussion will be had about those individual pieces of work, and those grades may change up or down. It's an unfair system in that only the student's work that's involved in that sample gets looked at and gets changed. Moderation is a process that takes an overview of the whole. Theoretically, it takes an overview of the whole cohort of work that's being examined, and so no changes are made to individual grades. Any changes that need to be made as part of the moderation process are made to the whole cohort. Our learning and teaching lead in the department produced a series of documents to support the moderation process. Moderation in Practice was the title of the document, and it's very much about translating the guidance into a practical guide, almost a step-by-step guide for moderators and for unit leaders about how we're interpreting, how we're using and how we're operating that guidance. So that involves a step-by-step walk through from the beginning of the academic year, from that point of verification of assignment briefs through that first meeting soon after the submission of students' work, that calibration process, which ought to involve a meeting at that point of the whole unit team. This doubles as a very good staff development exercise, actually, especially for new staff who are new perhaps to university examination, but certainly new to our moderation processes, our assessment criteria and so on. In terms of statistics, I think that it seems to have had a good effect in terms of students' perceptions about the accuracy and the consistency of the marking across the programme. The moderation process is broadly invisible for the students, of course. It amounts to our reassurance that their work undergoes a rigorous process. Having said that, we describe the process on all of our assignment briefs, so if they're interested, they can track the journey of their work from the moment they submit it through to the moment that they get feedback on it. But our internal student survey assessments and our national student survey assessments have gone up markedly in this area of assessment and feedback. And I think that the clarity of the documentation that we've provided to students to support the process has been the key thing. I think that the key is to be very organised and to make sure that the instructions are clear for all colleagues. The timeframes can be tough. The MMU commitment commits us to 4-week turnaround for feedback and moderated grades to be delivered back to students, which sets us a number of pre-deadlines prior to that 4-week point. First marking has to be done in good time for the moderators to moderate at the end of the cycle. But prior to that, and a very important element of successfully operating the moderation procedure, I think, are the early moderation meetings that we require unit teams to have under the guidance of the unit leader. So maybe a week or so after the submission deadline, after students submit their work, unit teams are asked to meet with the moderator involved, and a very small sample of the students' work will be examined at that point in time. And it's a calibration process, really. It's a benchmarking process where the moderator will then look at 1 or 2 scripts from each marker and make a judgment about the accuracy and consistency of the marking on the unit. This is a really important benchmarking process. It's not a foolproof and perfect process. The moderator samples from all markers and will take a cross-section from all grade bands from that marker. But even so, sometimes a marker will be unclear or inaccurate in their interpretation of a particular grade boundary, let's say, and that might not get picked up as part of the moderation process. And we have had instances of that in each of the last 2 years, I think, which we've cleared up, but which show that the moderation process is not foolproof. And I've never seen a process of examination which is.